Something was wrong, we felt it inside. Something told us do not comply. Turn off the news, turn off the TV. It's time to think, get off your knees. We tried to warn loved ones, oh did we try? We tried to save lives, but we were denied. Sadly we failed and many of them died. We were kicked to the side, we did not hide. We took to the streets, we would not comply. Our conscience told us this was the world's largest lie. At first we were few, but we shortly grew. Melbourne streets saw sights that had never been seen. We fought for our rights, for all to be free. People thrown to the ground, pepper spray to the face. No matter what age, we were locked up and caged. Then the guns came out, they had no care. They shot their own people, running in fear, unarmed and peaceful. We stood for our rights, they would not stop us. We would not give up the fight. We were locked out of cafes, our families withdrew. No Christmas, no birthdays, no celebrations we knew. We were germs, enemies, a danger to you. You watched the counts on mainstream news. No further would you look, we were all cooked. Deluded, brainwashed, segregation we lived through. Whilst you lived your life without any clue. People thrown to the ground, pepper spray to the face. No matter what age, we were locked up and caged. Then the guns came out, they had no care. They shot their own people, running in fear, unarmed and peaceful. We stood for our rights, they would not stop us. We would not give up the fight. Something was wrong, we felt it inside. Something told us do not comply.
Good evening and welcome to Mantra Moments. Before I introduce our guest tonight, I just want to tell you a little bit about what's happening with Cafe Lockdown. As most of you know, we have a little shop. So more products are going to be coming on, more songs, and maybe even a bee-free wine. So that's very exciting for many people, not for me, I don't drink. But we are expanding as a business. This is what we're hoping we're heading for. So each podcaster will have a little link. If you purchase from that link, the little percentage of that purchase will come back to that podcaster. So now I'm going to introduce you to Luke Hart, and he will be speaking to us tonight about the dangers of digital ID. Welcome, Luke. How are you?
Good. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. So tell us what you've been researching about. You've been doing a lot of research on this subject.
Yes, and look, it's been a bit of a rabbit hole, but there's a lot of data across the world which is out there in the open in the public. I guess a lot of that sort of research has stemmed from learning about what the World Health Organization and what the UN have put together, and even the World Economic Forum. So there's been pages and pages of articles, read in the past, and just sort of monitoring things and also speaking out about it, which funnily enough sort of helps find the information, because there's things to do with countries overseas that are implementing their own form of digital ID as we speak, which I didn't even know about. And it's just it's a bigger and bigger hole. And it's highly concerning for me because we have this little thing, or we've had this little thing for a very long time called privacy, and I don't think that we're going to have it if we continue to let things slide. So it's been, I guess, a bit of a mental kind of roller coaster as well. You know, I think about things pretty deeply and try and put it all together and what it looks like. And, you know, it's a bit of a burden when you're sort of thinking about that, but on your, you know, in relation to your children or your grandchildren, you know, their futures.
Mm-hmm.
So I just consider, well, what is their world going to look like? You know, it's another decade before my two little ones become adults. But you look back 10 years ago, you know, what's that 2015 compared to now? And there's been obviously a big acceleration in a lot of things, you know, AI and everything. And I think we have the choice of doing any of this the right way or the wrong way. You know, I don't think we have lost that ability. Mind you, the media will throw things out there and then make us look, or they try and make people who speak out look crazy. The shirt I'm wearing is from a band called COG, C-O-G. They literally wrote lyrics about this in 2012, you know, that you will be perceived a certain way and all that. So you know, it's a slippery slope as far as I'm concerned. But in saying that, you know, the more people that speak out about it and the more people who talk about it means it's a lot harder for them to censor people like us, you know, and others that are talking about it. I'm watching Jason Miles's posts at the moment be heavily censored, and he used to get through a lot of information. It's sad because he's always been someone who's been on the money. You know, he hasn't put really anything out there that's been sketchy. It's been from his heart, and it's been very truthful. And
who's that, Matt? Who's that, Luke?
He's Jason Miles. So he lives up.
Oh, Jason Miles. Yes, I know who he is.
Yeah. And he's been through the whole, you know, rigmarole of trying to run for the Senate, and like he knows the system a lot better than I do, basically. And like as others do. And, you know, I think a lot of Australians are learning more and more that that things are just not right. There's something just not quite right. And, you know, so we've got to try and stick as much as we can to the facts and the truth. And, you know, I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. Like, there's a lot of information floating around at the moment about the Australian version of the Digital ID being voluntary. And yes, that's true. Section 74 of whatever document we've put together. However, as one of my friends who's an electrician said to me the other day, completely out of the blue, you know, we sort of spoke about 12 months ago, maybe a little bit sporadically on and off, but not frequently. He just messaged me after, I think, maybe one of the posts I did or whatever, and we had a bit of a conversation about that, a couple of other things. He said, tradies need a digital ID in Queensland at least to continue their license. So think back to obviously, you know, 2020, 2021, where each state did their own thing. You know, like Melbourne had lots of lockdowns. Let's just say Western Australia had Mark McGowan. You know, New South Wales did their own thing and Queensland did different things. And, you know, there was like a baseline of we're going to have a show, you know, chief health officer talk about the crap at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or whatever. They weren't exactly the same time, so people could actually bounce from one state to the other and be more brainwashed.
Yeah, more people.
But, you know, they all did their own thing. And I think Australia's plan, by the looks, is to say, oh, it's voluntary, it's okay. But, you know, it's going to be the same as the pandemic or the scamdemic, because there's going to be little things that you just won't be able to do unless you sign up to it.
Yes.
And that involves, it's also, very common with the next generation. Why would they just have a think about that? Why are they going after people under 6, or, for argument's sake, going after people under 16? Why is that, the step? It's like, well, maybe they've thought that they can't really rip the Band-Aid off here. They thought they could in the UK by the look of it, but that's been a big pushback over there.
Yes.
And it looks like they are just going to go with it in Vietnam. I'll talk a bit more about that soon. But Australia, it's like, no, we're going to try and, maybe indoctrinate a bit more and get people of that age, of that younger age, more used to it. And for any parent who has children, it's not a harsh topic. It's not one of these topics where you should be holding back. You should actually, because a lot of young humans watch YouTube and all that. So just say, hey, this might not be a thing anymore. From December the 10th, you might not be able to see this anymore unless maybe if you wear one of them old people masks. Mind you, that was an article on ABC. They said,
really?
Yeah, they said young people may skip around the Digital I.D restrictions by wearing one of them old person masks that you see on what's that show, Crusty Demons and things like that. Someone will actually have the answer, but yeah.
But don't we all have to prove our age?
Oh, most
no
likely.
Matter what.
Yeah, most likely. Well, I don't know the exact details on that because it looked like it was going that way.
Yes.
And as tougher fielders a lot more onto this than I am, I must admit strongly. Gillian Wren Grant, who is an American/Australian citizen who's responsible for all this, she is actually under a few lawsuits and there's a lot of pressure on her. So the validity of this is a bit sketchy at the moment. So I think they've gone, oh, okay, hang on. Heaps of people are talking about this. So we're just going to step back and try and make AI and make the social media platforms accountable to make sure that this person's over 16. So what exactly happens on December 10, I don't actually fully know. Bill Shorten has suggested that, and look, I might be just pushing this a little bit further than what is actually going to happen, but I'm just thinking back to, when there was the lockdowns and all that. Basically, you needed a green tick to go into a bottle shop or go into a pub, restaurant, etc. And it was very restricted over the point of sale of alcohol. So I'm thinking that they're probably going to restrict all that, in bottle shops and at restaurants and pubs. Right. So what that would mean is if you went into a premises, say it was a nightclub, is probably the best example. You big burly bouncer standing there, and he says, "Can I see your digital ID to get in?" And it goes through the verification process. So we all know the verification process where you get sent the 6-digit code and you got to key that in and blah blah blah. It would actually have to be that. I know a lot of nightclubs went from, a bouncer reading your ID, it could be your brother's or whatever, to then you would have to scan that ID, like that driver's license or whatever. And actually there was data breaches, I believe, through that. That was a central database that got hacked, but it's still there. And this is like a progression. So is it just going to be nightclubs? Is it going to be bottle shops? And that's a big one. That's a very, very big one. And Bill Shorten's come out and said it, I think on purpose, because if they ripped that Band-Aid off, there'd be an uproar. You know, so it's this indoctrination process once again, and I think honestly the government, and probably more so the WEF, are hoping that there's not many data breaches or like bank shutdowns between now and December, like, you know, what CBA, Commonwealth Bank, you know, that basically went through a shutdown the other day. And, you know, there's been data breaches already with MyGov and all that. So, iScan is in Melbourne. So is that going into a premises, like a venue, I'm guessing? I think that might be what it is.
No idea. I don't go anywhere, Luke.
No, I don't really either. I'd rather just have a barbecue in the backyard and invite some friends over, to be honest.
Yes,
So, you know, what else is Australia doing? You know, they're keeping pretty tight-lipped about it. What's more concerning for me is what's happening overseas. So Vietnam at the start of, I probably won't talk much about the UK because I think most people know what's happening in the UK with Digital ID, but the Vietnam stuff is a little bit less known. So in Vietnam, they basically froze, or where's the wording? I've got the document up here, which I'll probably share it on my post soon so people can have their own read of it. So deactivated over 86 million bank accounts. Vietnam has a population of 101 million people, roughly 200 million bank accounts. So I think what they did is they looked at it and went, well, if we've got 101 million people, you know, maybe half of these bank accounts are, you know, duplicates or whatever, you know, scams even. So they reckon they went for the worst. What they did, I don't know. I don't live there. But it says accounts as a part of a national push for biometric verification. And then you scroll down. This is on a thing called ComSure. You go down and it talks about what is potentially coming. I think what you would have had to have done if your account got restricted is you would have to try and prove, you know, I believe you've went through something like that pretty recently.
Yep.
bit of a rigmarole.
Well, not quite, but
Nearly sorted.
nearly sorted.
Excellent.
I've closed my account.
So this is literally from their website. July 1, 2025. Corporate accounts require legal representatives to verify biometrics or services where they were suspended. A new decree on regulations for electronic identification and authentication took effect, mandating facial scans or fingerprints for logins and transfers over 10 million VND, which is their currency. That equals $379 US. So if you want to go and buy something for 600 Australian dollars, you would have to go through that biometric scan.
Bloody hell.
Over a day. So that's just you know, that's just one transaction. They've got a second tier. So over a day. So say that you go Christmas shopping or you go spend a whole heap of money for whatever reason. Just trying to find the exact figure. Basically, I think from memory, I just can't see it right now, but over a daily spend, it was to be, I think it was 700 and something US dollars. So let's say 1,000, maybe 1,100 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
Which spending $1,100 for some people over Christmas in their shop, and then you had groceries and stuff like that. It's not really that hard, you know. It literally says this is from the WF. Like it doesn't. Nothing gets held back. It's crazy, And it also says there's the part to do where it's rolling into 2030. It basically says, it'd be good to read it word for word if I can find it. But it goes on and says they in Vietnam, they're basically pushing for a cashless society. It says that in black and white. That's their intention. So those accounts, I think they're just basically going to delete any account which is not claimed, if that makes sense. I don't know how long they're giving them. They're calling it a digital sweep out and all this crap, so they can go quicker into a cashless society. So I'll share that on my social media. Book.
Okay.
I've just done a post related to China's social credit system, which is probably a good thing to talk about now. So I can't see much of I think these sort of work hand in hand. Let us know what you think in the comments, because China, I was actually talking to you about this just before we started.
Yes,
so China wanted to implement their social credit system by 2020 nationally.
Yeah.
So they put a whole heap of CCTV cameras everywhere, which were linked up. And, we've got evidence of them being on the Gold Coast. There's certain sections of the Gold Coast which have these. They have the facial recognition technology. To say some of it's already here is not lying. It's
no, not at all.
It's unfortunate, but it's the case. I think
In Victoria, the first week of lockdowns, they started putting all the cameras up in Melbourne. First week.
Yeah. We had a Forest of the Fallen in Broadwater, and there was sorry, I'm just trying to get this up so I can read it properly. There was a security guard who came and said, we need to take it down. And we're like, why? You're not giving us any reason. And he's like, I'll go talk to the boss. He comes back and he goes, you may accidentally damage the sprinkler system under the ground. And we're like, okay. He's like, look, I'm just going to go away. And this is what security guard said. I'm going to go away and I'll come back when I finish work. We didn't take it down. Anyway, he came back off duty and he said, in that park, which is near Australia Fair, if anyone remembers where that is, they have all their cameras, and it's literally got his words. It's got facial recognition technology and all that. And there's, if you dig deeper on the Gold Coast City Council website, there's around 8 different locations which have the same cameras, and they're all linked up to the same network. And they've got a data center on the Gold Coast, which it all feeds into. It's all there. So, it's a matter of flicking the switch. This thing's really hard to read, which is annoying.
That's simple, isn't it?
Yeah. So China's social credit system, what can we say about that? So, yes, they wanted it implemented in 2020, and we know what happened then. People remember there was some very interesting things that happened in Shanghai. There was lots of freight movements which were restricted, impacted a lot of global supply chains, including here in Australia. I think there was, even in California, I believe that because I've got a logistics background, so I find this very funny. They had too many empty containers. They didn't know what to do with them. And I'm like, just ship them out to the desert, just get rid of them. If they're clogging up your supply chain, just focus on clearing that, chuck them out on an empty space in the desert, and then go from there. But, maybe I've got slightly more intelligence than some of these people in government. So Shanghai, they had issues. Now, China, it looks like it's only in certain provinces. Hey, Forge. So there's only maybe a handful of different provinces where this social credit system is actually live, and they're looking at it. They're seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, making it better, in their words. So let's read out the things that give you a boost in the social credit score. So engaging in charity work, taking care of elderly family members, positively influencing.
It's just in China?
Yeah,
yeah.
In certain provinces of China. Positively influencing one's neighborhood. Oh, that's how I move it. Sweet. Donating blood.
Very
Praising the government on social media.
No. Are you serious?
Yep. Helping the poor. Having a good financial credit history, which, like, that's already part to do with what we have now in terms of a credit history.
Yes.
Committing a heroic act. And then on the other side, so it's got the opposite, basically. Traffic, well, it's got the opposite in terms of the way they're going to view it through their eyes, not the way that we like.
Yes.
A heroic act to someone in the freedom movement is not going to be recognised, obviously.
No.
Traffic offences such as drink driving or jaywalking, their cameras can pick up if you are jaywalking, and it can actually trigger an automated fine. That's one. Illegally protesting against the authorities, that's a no-brainer that they would chuck that in.
Yeah. Yes.
Not visiting aging parents regularly. Like, they've got some really good family values,
Yeah.
Protesting.
Still, you get penalised for that if you don't visit.
If you don't, yeah. Yep. And I don't know what the level is. Posting anti-government messages on social media. So, like, I think, who was it?
Just put that in.
Someone who said their credit score was about 18 zeros, we'd all be on 18 zeros. What's that one? That's really hard to read. Sorry, I can't read that one. Some of these are impossible to read because it's really bad clarity for some reason. Participating in anything recognized as a cult. So if there was a group that started and if, say 20, 30 years this is in, and the Australian government said, we reckon that's a cult, then all of a sudden some of these groups potentially that we're all involved in would lower your social credit score. Not that we'd care. Lowest score 600, middle ground's about 1,000, and the high is 1,300. Now, actually, if I can read some of that, that's going to be pretty good, pretty handy. There's two things to this. The first thing is they will publicly name and shame people who are bad, and which I believe they are doing. I'm pretty sure they are doing.
Yes.
In these certain provinces. And they will also do the opposite. So they will put people up that are goody two-shoes on big billboards and say, this person's got a credit score of 1,250.
I already know people that will thrive on that.
Yeah, so let's see. Might be able to read it better on my phone. That would be
so,
handy.
Luke, I think in WA they've just they've done something about anyone that is a sovereign citizen or knows anyone that is. Mind you, I don't understand that they don't realise there's no such thing as sovereign citizen. But they're looking out for people that are doing that now.
Yeah.
and taking their license. That's what it was. That's
Yeah,
just
taking
happened.
their gun license off them.
Yeah. No, driver's license as well now. That's just come
Yeah,
out
right.
today. Yeah,
I
because
didn't know
it's
about the
dangerous.
driver's license one.
No, I just read it before. That's just come out. I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong, people correct me, please. But Rochi, you're over there. Isn't that what's just happened today?
Rachie mentioned the social credit score. That was the one.
Oh, yeah.
Punishments can lead to. So, actually, this is exactly what you just said. Denial of licenses, permits, access to some social services, exclusion from booking flights or high-speed train tickets. I need to talk about travel soon. Less access to credit. I mean, if you don't need credit, you don't need credit. So, restricted services. Let me rephrase that. Restricted access to public services. Ineligibility for government jobs. No access to private schools, and then it says the public shaming. Blah 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 blah. I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure if you want to travel to the EU, you now require some form of biometric identification. You need to go through that process.
From here?
It's from here. I think anyone who travels into the EU, they require that now. Or it's very soon. It's one of the two. But I could be wrong. That was just something that sort of popped up. And look, I believe that this can be confirmed or denied by my partner who's not here, because she books flights for people who go overseas in terms of her job. So, basically she would definitely know. So this is where, when you look at cancelling car regos. Thanks, Lynn. So when you look at how Australia, let's go back to how Australia did different things in terms of the states. This looks like a larger scale. There's countries doing different things. Pretty sure we all know that the UK, the weird looking PM over there is just a goofball like the rest of them. Looks like a token goofball. Said that you needed a digital ID to be able to work. And a lot of British people that were, actively protesting and getting to marches and stuff like that said, well, let's not go to work.
Yes.
And I think that's perfect. Anyone who is in a good, solid community, as far as I'm concerned, if they, if their community has battled through some sort of weather event, come out the other side and not really had too much need for any government influence, any support or anything like that. I think if that's how people get together and really support each other, then if people stop work for a month, it's going to have to be a month. Like a week isn't going to cut it. It's going to have to be longer than a week. Some people say a day. It's like, what's a day going to do? Don't go and buy fuel for a day. Like, you're just going to buy more fuel the next day. It's no, So, and look, if it gets to push and shove like that, like if people want to treat that month as a holiday, it's just a matter of preparation. Perhaps maybe thinking about what you may consider now, if need be, and who can you rely on. Like, I will, not often, every now and again, I'll see people posting that they've got some eggs for sale on social media and stuff like that. Like, sure, we might be locked out of a lot of things. Who knows? Like, who knows how far they will go to get people to go back to work. But if you get to know these people, like if you know where they live and you're friends with them and stuff like that, that's the community. That's the community building up. And and becoming, more solid. So
Which
if
is
it's
good.
a month, yeah, if it, like we've got 2 weeks of food in the fridge and the freezer. Generally,
You have, yeah.
yeah. We try and bulk up, particularly when we've got all the children here and stuff like that. It's all about preparation. We can light a fire in the backyard and cook off that if we need to. But you just got to think outside the box.
Yes.
Stammer, that's his name, that British.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyone who knows Officer Plod, he looks like he's a little bit related to him. That was off Noddy back in the day. I'm just going to cross out some of the things I've spoken about.
Oh, okay. You did.
I wrote a Substack on this, so
I'm pretty sure I put that up actually.
Yeah, you've shared it, which I definitely thank you for.
You're welcome.
I can't remember what I'm called, but I'll move this over here. I believe it's because I enjoy putting stuff together and writing and the challenge of it. I think a lot of people should give it a go. Like, just put some thoughts down. Like, I'd like to eventually put a whole heap of these Substacks together for my children in the future and print them out, and they may get to it and they may not in the future.
Yeah. So Wayne's saying there is stop work on the 10th of the 11th. Yes, I think there is, but like Luke just said, one day is not really going to cut it, is it?
No. I'm not sure if that's November or December, because I think the the under 16 thing it starts on the 10th of December. So, I created a PDF document a while ago, which many of you probably requested. Basically, when Albo got back in, I thought, well, I don't know why people are so upset about this. Like, it's pretty obvious that they were going to continue. They weren't going to stop. Things weren't going to go back to normal.
Absolutely.
And I just threw it out there and said, like, if people want this document to basically shift your way of thinking away from corporations or, anything that's WEF driven or anything like that, here's the document. Here's a few things that you can consider. It's not just food shopping. It's a whole range of things. 300 requests later via Messenger. I just, like, there's comment after comment. It took about 3 or 4 days. I kept sharing that with everyone, and hopefully people like it, and hopefully people have started to consider, a bit of an alternative to just being locked in this system and arguably forced. Like, I'm not perfect. There's times where I've got to go buy things. There's not all that many service stations around, stuff like that. Like, you can't get it 100%, but you shouldn't really think you need to be 100%. If you've got the right intention, then that's enough. We're all busy. We're all doing multiple things and paying bills and stuff like that. It's about trying to do the best to not be so much financially accountable for these systems that are going to continue to evolve time and time again. So my Substacks are like a writer's app. If you go into Substack, it's step into the new world, one big word. And if you do that, search that, then you'll find me. I think if I do this, it might go in the chat. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Putting it in the chat now, but
all right, cool.
See.
So solutions. Good time to talk about solutions. So, and that's pretty much one of the last things I had on my list. Less people want me to talk about the UK, but I'm pretty sure we already know what's going on there. So there has been talk about things like Google Maps, Apple Maps being restricted. I can predominantly drive around, particularly where I live. I could literally, my sister lives down in Victoria, and I could drive down from here, skip every toll, and land on her doorstep without using any maps at all. But I do know that some people have the brain for that, some people don't. And I'm thinking that if you're relying on your car or your phone to drive around all the time, then this is going to Melways. Thank you, Jenny.
I want to buy one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to really, I want to say something which may not be PG. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. I will definitely be buying a Refidex. Is
that a Queensland one?
Yeah, I think there's a company called Gregory's, which, from what I can see, they're an Australian company.
Yep.
See, I run a business, so it's actually good for me to be able to go, well, they're over there, and I need to go there at some point, even though I don't want to because they're annoying. But I'll drive over there because they're not far away. I can literally open it up and work out who's in what suburb and then go from there. I'm just going to flip these around so I can concentrate. The less reliance that we have on digital systems could prove very beneficial.
And we should be teaching our children how to use the Melways.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Well, when you open it up, basically straight up is always north. So it will teach children things like direction, and I reckon on a dozen or so occasions I've said to my children, which direction is home? Like, we'll just be driving around or whatever. You tell me what direction is home. Now, if you're near the water, like the water here is obviously east, they can sort of go, well, the water's there. Home could be that way. Or if the sun's setting, they know the sun sets in the west and stuff like that. It's their knowledge of their own location.
Yes.
So there's that. There's buying a dumb phone rather. So I wouldn't get too caught up in the wording. Obviously a dumb phone is just the polar opposite to a smartphone,
Yeah.
So you can buy them outright now. You can even buy old Nokia 3310s. I'm wondering whether they're going to become collector's items. It's a possibility. They're not that expensive now, but we've got all this retro stuff. Like, this is a fake Chinese rip-off retro game thing.
Oh.
But if you have a real version of that, that's just one of my children's things floating around. A real version of that, they're actually worth a lot of money now, right? So it's the same thing going to happen to the old Nokia phones that you could only play Snake with. You could see them being worth a lot of money, being a collect. Maybe not. Please don't take anything I say as financial advice. But there's a possibility there. I remember reading an article about people in Silicon Valley that was starting to buy flip phones because they were worried about the camera. And that was well before a lot of this was even spoken about. They were just concerned about their biometrics being tracked back then.
Okay.
And look, I am reading actually interesting topic. I did go to try and find a bit of research for the Substack related to cash usage and if like the notes were trending up and stuff like that, because there's graphs out there suggesting it, but I couldn't find anything on the RBA website. And I'm thinking that's a bit strange. So I had a look at what the RBA website had on offer. And they basically hadn't, like, you couldn't really find a new article, like an article from this year. You could find maybe one or two, but nothing related to what I was after. So you couldn't find out if there was a rise in ATMs in terms of being available. You couldn't find out if cash was on the rise, like a new article that they'd written or anything like that. And that was on their website. So we know that the data exists and it's all out there, but they're not sharing that information, aren't they? So I'd be asking some serious questions on that alone. But we need another, like, I get it. Cash is not, it's fake. It's not real currency, but I view it as the mechanism between me or someone else to me and then me to someone else, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, I'll do some work and a customer will pay me some cash and then I'll take that down to the local takeaway shop, which I know is awake, or, up to there's a cafe, Little Ego in Ormo. Donna's, I'm happy to promote her because Donna's been through class actions and all sorts of stuff. She's done a heap. And I'm pretty sure she took over that business from the owner. And just, she loves it. She absolutely loves it. The amount of people that she gets to see every day, because, like, to explain it, I don't really go that way very often, and that's towards Brisbane, for anyone wondering, because traffic's really, really bad. But if I go up that way and I need a coffee, I'll make an effort just to call into her little cafe, have a chat with her, give her an update on what things that I know, and she'll give me an update. And my place, Yatla, has their meetings there and stuff like that. Like, she's got a community notice board out the back, and people can advertise their business on there. It's beautiful. It's really, really good. That's the sense of community, and the community supported her when the police were trying to get them to close their business. TPR did a great job of assisting her to keep going. Or not just her, but the guy who used to own it. I need to be clear. And she's giving back. It's absolutely great.
It's lovely.
Yeah. Did you want to talk anything about your bank incident?
No, I think everybody knows that. I was just, basically, to cut a long story short, I tried to buy something and my bank decided that they didn't want me to do it, and they restricted my bank account so that nothing could get paid or transferred or anything. And then they wanted my friend's details who told me about the crypto. So they wanted her details. They wanted to know if she was involved with it, etc., etc. And of course, I wouldn't give it to them. So they restricted my account for another 2 days and told me to come back and talk to me about it then.
It's crazy.
So I went in the next day and I was allowed to I was permitted to draw money out at the teller. So I drew my money out. Luckily, there wasn't much in there because I don't have much. And I closed my account. But then they didn't close it properly and took money out. And I got a notice last night saying I owe them money. Hang on a minute, you're meant to have closed that, and it was meant to be restricted. So I'm not quite sure how that happened. But anyway, the lady today was really lovely, and she just put the money back in from the bank, so I didn't have to give them money.
And you weren't the only one either.
No.
So how many staff are in this specific bank across the country that are seeing a lot of these stories and then going, this is new?
And you know what, Luke? They told me I wasn't to socialise or speak to my friend. I said, I'm 58 years old. I'll speak to whoever I want to speak to. Thank you very much. This is a bank telling us who we can and can't socialise with.
And a bank's a corporation. Need to make that very clear. A bank is a corporation. So, look, I know probably 3, maybe 4 people that have had their accounts frozen through being very vocal, and some not necessarily vocal, but like publicly vocal, but they have shifted, like they've shifted earth. They've done a lot. They've done a lot of good stuff. So it's concerning, but you know, obviously there's other means of people to be able to do their transactions. You know, I run a business and I try to work out a way where I can tell every client that, look, if you, like I've already said this to a few clients, but if you want to pay via commodities, you know, actual real coins, then it would probably put you well in advance. You know, if you wanted to chuck me a silver or a gold coin or a palladium, platinum, whatever, we'd just have to work it out on that day how much it's worth and what that looks like, and I'd give a bit of a discount from my end, and you know, there's other ways of doing everything. You know, we don't have to stick in this global world anymore. We can do things alternatively, you know, and it's less about us now. It's about trying to show the next generation what options they have. You know, it's not that they have to get a certain bank account or one of the 4 banks, or you know, this is things that they don't necessarily have to do. Just because the man on television says you have to do it doesn't mean that you have to do it.
Look, I'm excited because I know that it's just, I was pushing to do different things anyway, and it's just pushed me a bit further. So I'm quite excited about it now. You know, I wasn't impressed, but I'm like, this is great because I feel freer again. You know, I'm away from them. I can do something else now. It's exciting. Yep. We just have to use our imagination, step out of our, you know, the box, and take no notice of what we're meant to do, and think.
I still have a little bit of money in a bank, but the bulk of what I have is not in a bank anymore. You know, and it's in a community bank. I stepped away from Suncorp, particularly when, like, the last straw was when ANZ were taking it over. We paid a job silver, stayed in Caribbean Park. Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Excellent, yeah. Rachie. You know, and actually that's a very good topic. So, you know, we've traveled a little bit lately. We've gone on a couple of little holidays and stuff like that, camping, blah blah blah. I need to write it down. This is good. I've just given myself an idea. So
we've only got a couple of minutes left, Luke. Just let you know.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm sure that there are people that are, you know, touting with Airbnb and things like that. You know, if you've got a property where it's got a cottage on the side, they call it a side hustle. ATL are onto it, as we know, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of Australians thought they were going to get away with that one. But hey, let's just get it out there in the community, get a whole people doing this Airbnb stuff, and then let the ATO come in and take control.
Yeah. See, that's a whole new thing we can do. We can set up little places all over Australia, have our own community, and buy with gold or silver, whatever it is. Trade, barter.
That's exactly what I was getting at. So if you are, I guess, trying to gain people to stay at your premises, if they're a good person, if you get to meet all of them, like, don't harass them because they're there for a holiday or they're there for a break. But if they feel like a good person, then say, look, if you want to stay here again, call this number first. Don't go on that, blah, blah, blah. You know, and if you want to turn up and pay any form of legal tender or commodities or whatever, then we don't need this other thing over here. And if you get enough clientele that way, then you don't need to go via a digital system where it's going to be always like added up and digitally recognized and things like that. So
we can do it. We can do it. Put our little brains together.
And I don't think we should be scared of all this. Like, it's probably, there's going to be things that come in and things that are going to happen, and there's going to be some potential struggle and all that. Look, there's people in high places that do not want any digital ID. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
There's corporate CEOs that really don't want this shit. Back when digital ID was only really first spoken of, I knew of someone in a high place who literally put a LinkedIn post against it. And he started the conversation way back then. Never got to meet him, but it's something that I'm going to touch base on and see if he's continued. Like, has he continued to talk about this on a public level? I'm sure he has privately with people, but is he still, trying to get the word out like we're trying to get the word out?
Luke,
what's happened? Yeah,
we're going to have to go.
Excellent.
Sorry, we have another show on at 8:00, so we have to be gone.
Thank you so much for having me to talk about all this.
Thank you for coming on. It's been great.
Appreciated.
And I'm sure we can do something to build community, I think, and get around all this stuff. Yeah. Those
who want to talk further about it, just flick me a message on Messenger. Talk about it on the post I've done tonight, whatever you want to do. I'll get to it and, continue the conversation.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Luke. Have a great week.
You
Take
too.
care. Bye. I've got to get rid of you now. Sorry. Ciao. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this evening's chat. Lots of good information there, and I will see you next week. Have a great evening.
Something was wrong, we felt it inside. Something told us do not comply. Turn off the news, turn off the TV. It's time to think, get off your knees. We tried to warn loved ones, oh did we try? We tried to save lives, but we were denied. Sadly we failed and many of them died. We were kicked to the side, we did not hide. We took to the streets, we would not comply. Our conscience told us this was the world's largest lie. At first we were few, but we shortly grew. Melbourne streets saw sights that had never been seen. We fought for our rights, for all to be free. People thrown to the ground, pepper spray to the face. No matter what age, we were locked up and caged. Then the guns came out, they had no care. They shot their own people, were running in fear, unarmed and peaceful. We stood for our rights, they would not stop us. We would not give up the fight. We were locked out of cafes, our families withdrew. No Christmas, no birthdays, no celebrations we knew. We were germs, enemies, a danger to you. You watched the counts on mainstream news. No further would you look, we were all cooked. Deluded, brainwashed, segregation we lived through, whilst you lived your life without any clue. People thrown to the ground, pepper spray to the face. No matter what age, we were locked up They shot their own people, running in fear, unarmed and peaceful. We stood for our rights. They would not stop us. We would not give up the fight. Something was wrong, we felt it inside. Something told us, do not comply.